So for those that are on the phone, when your name is called to testify, you can unmute your phone by hitting *6. And for those that are on your computer, when you're called to testify, all you have to do is click the microphone symbol to unmute yourself. And that's all I have from a logistics standpoint. Ken, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, before you start, just if you weren't able to sign up ahead of time to be on the list to testify, there's a chat function that you can use right in here, or you can unmute yourself at some point when there's time and say you'd also like to testify. So it's either *6, as Danny said, on the call-in, or use the unmute button if you are with the Teams access. So. All right, so we are recording now. I'm going to start the hearing. As Danny said, this hearing proceeding is being recorded. Danny is going to be moderating for me. I am the hearing officer. All participants are now being muted, as Danny talked about. My name is Kenneth Ratzman. I am the Assistant Director of the Division of Air Quality in the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. We are here tonight on April 22nd, 2020 for an online virtual public hearing for the Delaware River Partners located at 200 North Repauno Avenue, Gibbstown, New Jersey. I will be the hearing officer tonight. Please note that this hearing was originally scheduled for Tuesday, April 7th, 2020 at the St. Michael's Club Hall, which is located at 406 Memorial Avenue, Gibbstown, New Jersey, 08027. That is near the facility in question. Due to the coronavirus challenges, the timing and the venue of the hearing needed to be
Ken, you have to unmute yourself. Somehow you got muted.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start again. There's always technical challenges. Plus, my dog is scratching at the door. But all right, I'll start over. Please note that this proceeding is being recorded. All participants are now being muted. Hopefully, I don't get muted again. Good evening. My name is Kenneth Ratzman. I am the Assistant Director of the Division of Air Quality in the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. We are here tonight on April 22nd, 2020 for an online virtual public hearing for Delaware River Partners at 200 Repauno Avenue, Gibbstown, New Jersey. I will be the hearing officer for this hearing. Please note that this hearing was originally scheduled for Tuesday, April 7th, 2020 at St. Michael's Club Hall, which is located at 406 Memorial Avenue, Gibbstown, New Jersey, 08027, near the facility in question. Due to the coronavirus challenges, the timing and the venue of the hearing needed to be changed. A revised public notice was posted March 24th, 2020. In addition to posting the new hearing information, the notice also extended the written comment deadline to April 29th, 2020. The purpose of this hearing is to seek public comment on the following draft permit, which the department is proposing to approve. Expansion of the existing LPG, butane and propane only, transloading operations at the existing multi-purpose dock for the addition of 2 rail car loading racks, 1 marine vessel loading, and a second enclosed flare. The expansion will increase the facility's annual VOC emissions to 8.61 tons from the currently permitted 5.44 tons per year, that is. The permit does not allow transloading of natural gas or liquid natural gas. The department is proposing to approve this permit. The basis for this approval is the facility's compliance with all applicable state air pollution control laws and rules. NJAC 727-5, 8, 9, 16, 17, and 19 are all applicable. There are no applicable federal air pollution control regulations. If anyone demonstrates to the department that the facility would not comply with any of the applicable air pollution control laws and rules, the department's proposed decision to approve this permit or the requirements imposed in the draft permit may be changed. I will be calling each person in the order that they have registered through the online registration to present their comments and questions. I wish to advise you that this is not an adversarial hearing or proceeding. Persons who speak will not be sworn in as witnesses, nor will cross-examination be permitted. People will be called to testify in the order that they were registered. A recording of this proceeding will be made publicly available, and the DEP personnel will be closely listening to your comments. Upon completion of a full technical and legal review of the questions and issues raised, the department will issue a formal response to comment document together with its final determination on the permit action under consideration. Where your concerns or comments are not clear to us, we may ask for clarification so that we can best consider your comments as we complete our review of this permit application. We appreciate you taking the time to join us in the virtual world tonight. A copy of the response to comments document and the department's decision on the permit application will be sent to all commenters who have provided the department with contact information or send in written comments with contact information. To ensure that everyone who wants to speak is given the opportunity, we ask the speakers to limit your presentation to 10 minutes. Note that when you have 2 minutes left and 1 minute left, Danny will put a note in the comments section or in the chat section of this hearing. This hearing will continue until all speakers have had an opportunity to present their comments. Speakers who have prepared written comments are asked to email comments to Sunila Agrawal at the DEP. That's SUNILA.Agrawal, AGRAWAL @dep.nj.gov. Should you have insufficient time to present all your comments, or you should think of additional concerns after the close of this hearing, you may submit your comments in writing to the department by April 29th, 2020. If you have extensive written comments, please summarize the key points orally and submit the details in writing by the April 29th, 2020 date. Anyone who wishes to speak should inform the hearing officer by using the chat function in the MS Teams, or if you called on the telephone, provide your name when asked by the hearing officer, if there's anyone on the phone. When your name is called, please speak clearly, state your name and spell it, and the organization or company you are representing. You may unmute yourself by hitting *6 on the phone. So the first person that has signed up to testify is Tracy Carluccio. Hopefully I said that right. Tracy, are you available to talk?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, I'm available. Tracy Carluccio, TracyCarluccio. I'm Deputy Director, Delaware Riverkeeper Network. Thank you very much tonight for your work to put together this hearing. But I must protest the substitution of a virtual hearing for an in-person public hearing that was going to be held right in Gibbstown for the draft pre-construction permit modification for the Delaware River Partners Gibbstown Deepwater Export Terminal. It's essential that the necessary extraordinary actions that are being taken by the state to stop COVID-19 and to limit its spread through social distancing and the shutdown of non-essential activities not undermine and jeopardize people's other rights, including, germane to tonight, the right to active and meaningful participation in government decision-making, such as this air pollution permit for the Gibbstown terminal. We feel public participation in the decisions about projects that have real impacts on people's air, water, and many aspects of our lives are a hard-won and now highly valued right that is integral to the democratic process. Generations of Americans have worked to ensure that government doesn't make decisions behind closed doors, where deals between politicians and special interests used to be standard operating procedure. Gone with those smoke-filled backroom deals are the days when the public had to fight just to be heard. Even today, under normal circumstances, our public participation systems are not perfect, but they do provide real opportunities for every person to speak their mind and/or offer important information to influence the conclusions that decision makers arrive at. Live public hearings, comment periods for written comments, access to public records regarding a proposal, all have to remain functional if we want to have open and transparent government. These means of participation are now enshrined in law and can't be thrown aside or overshadowed in a panic to keep permits and plans pushing projects ahead as if these were normal times. These are not normal times. People are being asked to make tremendous sacrifices to try to stop this, the deadliest pandemic in most of our lifetimes. People are consumed, and rightfully so, with keeping themselves and their family healthy and safe, attending to illness and often dire economic straits if you're out of work. Even the everyday activities like grocery shopping can use up all the capacity people have, much less homeschooling of children who are distance learning and other important family matters. It must be remembered that many people do not have computers at home. They can't just log into a virtual hearing like some of us tonight are doing. And access to libraries and other support services that are usually available that those folks can go to are shut down as well. Families have to compete for computer and phone time. I see it amongst my nieces right down the road. And internet access is often strained beyond being functional. An in-person hearing allows anybody who can travel to a hearing site, which was going to be right in Gibbstown. They could probably walk, many people could probably walk there from Gibbstown home to testify without huge investment. And this access can't be replaced with an online hearing, period. It's not fair. In addition to the challenges people are facing that deprive them of full and fair participation is the difficulty in obtaining records. Delaware Riverkeeper Network received documents electronically from DEP last Friday afternoon. We requested them, I think it was Wednesday. But if we did not have a computer to receive them, we wouldn't have them because in-person appointments to review records are not, understandably, being scheduled during the COVID-19 down. We also filed an OPRA for all records pertaining to the permit last Wednesday, but received a response, oddly, that there were no responsive files. We got that yesterday. Delaware Riverkeeper Network requests that all forward movement on this air permit be halted until after the COVID-19 emergency shutdown is over and complete, full public participation in this permit can be restored. Those who live in Gibbstown and the Delaware region, where the export terminal is located, are going to be breathing the pollution this permit will allow. I wager that most people didn't even see the March 24th public notice, and yet they are expected to pay attention to a virtual hearing while they are confronting life and death issues. The fact that this draft permit, as you outlined at the beginning, was made public after the emergency shutdown, and the virtual hearing is occurring when we are all in the midst of the most severe shutdown circumstances, and the public comment period will close on April 29th, still during the pandemic shutdown, is unbelievably unjust. And it really makes a mockery of the public process, and it also tramples on people's rights. In addition to the lack of fair public participation opportunities, I also want to point out that this permit will allow the emissions of hazardous air pollutants. Yes, DEP says they're not at high enough threshold to require a stricter, more restrictive permit, but pollutants will be released to the atmosphere that are not now there. And for those breathing those pollutants day in and day out, they will be affected by volatile organic compounds, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, particulate matter, ammonia, and lead. And the methane that will be released from the liquefied hazardous gases will add the most powerful greenhouse gas to our atmosphere at a moment when we are fighting tooth and nail the climate crisis. The expansion proposed with this permit at the Gibbstown site is being layered on top of another flare that existed already for the cavern at this site for the butane being stored in the old DuPont cavern there. And then another permit will be needed for the proposed liquefied natural gas transport and transloading and export from rail cars and trucks onto ships. There are also diesel emissions from the transport and transloading process, and we don't even know what the final number is going to be. And that's because this project has been segmented from day one by the applicants, Delaware River Partners. So this is no small action that's being attempted through this virtual hearing and the comment process at DEP, despite the attempts to carve it all up into little pieces that don't sound so bad. Delaware Riverkeeper Network will be submitting written comments to address these more substantial issues. But we do want to say, in conclusion, that we want this permit pulled from the permitting process until the COVID-19 emergency is concluded and people can once again take part in a fair, transparent, and accessible public participation process that they have the right to. Thank you very much for the opportunity to submit this verbal comment tonight, despite our opposition to the platform.
Thank you, Ms. Carluccio. All right, the next speaker I have is Jeff Tittle from Sierra Club. Jeff, are you with us? And do you know how to unmute yourself?
Thank you. Jeff Tittle, director of the New Jersey Sierra Club. And I just want to start off and say that I've been involved in every Earth Day since the first one in 1970, when I led a group of students in Hillside, New Jersey to clean up the Elizabeth River, and then went down to Philadelphia for a concert and hear Senators Muskie speak and Senator Nelson on the first Earth Day. And I've been involved in every Earth Day since then. This is the first Earth Day in 50 years of my life. There was a hearing for a permit to promote more pollution. This is a day where we're supposed to be celebrating the environment, a day where we're supposed to be talking about our achievements in reducing pollutants, whether it's from air or water or paving over land. We are concerned because this was also supposed to be the day that the DEP was going to celebrate not only Earth Day, but the 50th anniversary of the creation of DEP. And I remember when it happened, and I could get to meet Richard Sullivan back in 1970. I got recognized for the work I did on the Elizabeth River with the junior high in Hillside. But the point that I want to get at is that this is not a way to be celebrating or recognizing Earth Day. This is not a way to be celebrating or recognizing the 50th anniversary of DEP. It's a Department of Eventual Pollution, expedited pollution. I guess that's what this is now, because we're expediting a permit during a period when the country is shut down, and in the state of New Jersey, we have the second biggest outbreak of coronavirus in the country. And I think that it's shameful. And this is not a reflection on staff. This is a reflection on leadership to have a hearing on this date. Now, if it wasn't for Tracy Carluccio, I might not have found out about it, because my office has been shut down for 6 weeks, and I get notices for air permits mailed to my office, and we haven't been always checking mail because we're really not allowed to go back to our office. So I didn't see the original notice. And I think that's part of the problem. Many people did not see that notice. Our concern is also that holding it today and holding it on a Zoom, sort of at, people are getting ready for dinner and everything else, that people are too occupied. People are occupied because they're worried about their family, their family's health, their own health. There are people who have coronavirus. I am one of them. And that mine is mild, but there's other people out. They don't have the time or inclination. They're worried about their jobs, their businesses, their future. A third of the people in New Jersey do not have adequate access to broadband or computers. So all the people in the state that are of low and modest incomes, that are seniors, that are unemployed, that are disabled, like my sister and others, do not have that access. And so they're cut out of the process. So we're making the right to participate something more for elites than it is for the average person. And we should be, if you hold a hearing in the community, people can walk to it. People can drive to it. They live there. They don't need a computer. Right now, there's also a problem with broadband and so many other things. And I don't want to repeat what Tracy said, but that's a serious problem. We are shutting out the public, and we're shutting out the dissent and the opposition to a project that's going to have long-term consequences. We could wait a couple of months until after the pandemic and health emergency has been lifted and have a hearing. But instead, we're rushing it through behind the hearing when people can't pay attention. What's the difference of waiting a couple of months on a facility that hasn't been built yet? And there's so many other permits that are out there. And we're really concerned when we look at this proposal that we're not looking at the secondary and cumulative impacts. We're not looking at what I call, one burning vent followed by another burning vent followed by more. We're creating the death of 1,000 asthma attacks because each bit of pollution that we're adding from the site, from the trucks, from the butane, from the LPG, from venting off methane, from the hazardous air pollutants that are going out, all have a cumulative impact on the surrounding community, which has some of the worst air quality in the nation and in the state of New Jersey, and into communities around it that have that are environmentally justice communities that are impaired because you have other facilities in this area like the Paulsboro refinery and the port and so many other things that it all adds up. And so our concern is that we believe that the EP should put this project on hold, rehold the hearings when people have a better chance to be able to go review documents and to do a file review, and then have a hearing in the area where people can come out and actually have a say in what directly impacts them. When we look at what's happening with coronavirus, the Harvard study, there's a study in Louisiana, there's studies in Italy and France that show that air pollution is a contributing impact, that people who live in areas with a lot of air pollution have more respiratory diseases that make them more vulnerable to coronavirus. People who have those diseases, who get coronavirus, are hurt much worse by the impact of coronavirus because of air pollution. And so at a time when we have a lockdown because of coronavirus, at a time when air pollution matters, we should be moving forward with a permit, especially on a day like Earth Day. But when we just look at cursory at the permit, it's a 50% increase in VOCs. That's a major increase. There's a major increase in HAPs, and talk about NOx when where a report came out yesterday. Good parts of New Jersey are at F level for ground level ozone, so we're putting out more NOx. But more importantly, we're not looking at the secondary and cumulative impacts, and also the 800-pound gorilla or whatever we want to call it that's in the room, which is the LNG terminal that this is all the stalking horse for, because we give one permit, then we give another permit. And what's the big deal about giving the third permit? Well, there is a big deal, especially when you talk about 1,600 trucks a day or more going into that site and the air pollution from that. When you think about what else could be going into this facility, bringing in not only liquid, LPG, but maybe even doing some kind of cracking facility here or something else. We don't know all the things that are going in, and that's why we should delay this to a time when there's better chance for public participation. Again, we are really concerned that at this period in time to be moving forward this permit absolutely makes no sense. And I will say that, and again, no criticism to the staff because you're doing your job, that this is a symbol of something that's really wrong in the state of New Jersey if we're celebrating Earth Day by having a hearing on a polluting facility that is also a safety risk to the people of the region. And again, when they start bringing in the train loads and truckloads, there's going to be a lot of venting of natural gas and methane from that. The ships are going to be venting methane and from them as well. And the state of New Jersey doesn't even regulate methane properly. It is a pollutant that is 80 times more impacting climate change than CO2. It is a pollutant that directly affects our lungs, and yet we don't even properly regulate it. And the state of New Jersey needs to step up. The governor in Executive Order 100 called about regulating short-term pollutants like methane. We haven't done it. So we're basically, this is not a permit. This is really just permission to keep polluting. That this is the Department of Expedited Pollution, and that's what it's going to do, because there's no real standard to say what the limits should be on methane coming out of these vents and these flare-offs, and it's going to be a tremendous amount of pollutants because they don't burn that effectively or efficiently, I should say. So again, better to do no harm, delay this process until the public has a right to say. And again, Sierra Club supports a moratorium on fossil fuel infrastructure until the state of New Jersey can better regulate CO2 and greenhouse gases, especially methane. And DEP isn't even going to start the stakeholder process on methane to maybe this summer. So we think that this project is the wrong project in the wrong place at the wrong time, and DEP should do its job and be the Department of Environmental Protection and stop it now. I want to thank you for allowing me to comment.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up, let me go to my email. Jocelyn Sawyer from Food and Water Watch and Food and Water Action. Jocelyn, can you hear me, and are you able to? Okay.
Hello, you can hear me. Great. Yes, hello, Jocelyn Sawyer with Food and Water Action. Also have concerns about this permit and the entire review process, which I'm raising on behalf of our 68,000 members in New Jersey. And first and foremost, I just want to echo what Jeff and Tracy have said, that this hearing should not have been rushed through in the middle of a global pandemic. Information was published for public comment on April 15th, and then this hearing held just 1 week later, and written comments are set to close next week. And meanwhile, Oprah requests for additional information have not been fulfilled by other concerned community groups, and just to say nothing of the additional barriers to obtaining access to public documents during this time. And this means impacted community members have not been able to meaningfully comment and participate. And on top of all of that, just all this during a state of emergency and economic collapse where people are consumed with family care and personal health, financial hardship. It leaves little time and mental space for impacted community members to meaningfully engage in this process. And this just, we feel, signals a disrespect to the communities that are on the fence line. There was not sufficient public notice given, and just as such, at a minimum, we respectfully request that NJDEP extend public comment deadlines by an additional 30 days. And further, the incremental death by 1,000 cuts or 1,000 asthma attacks, as Jeff put it, approach that's been taken by Delaware River Partners on converting this Gibbstown property into a large-scale liquefied gas export facility has not allowed the affected communities to fully comprehend the scale and the scope of the project. DRP has been putting forward these small requests for dock modifications, air permit modifications, access road construction, and other incremental permit requests, so that the planned conversion of this property into just a major source of emissions and a major public safety hazard has been downplayed throughout the process. And this is a particular concern after the tremendous explosion at the Philadelphia Energy Solutions complex less than a year ago. So this is an area where people are no strangers to the impacts of what can go wrong in a fossil fuel project. From our perspective, this does appear to be purposeful segmentation, where DRP has failed to acknowledge the attempts to convert this facility into a liquefied natural gas export facility on top of its expanded butane and propane storage and offloading facilities. DRP is seeking to add another flare to cover the expansion of LPG handling at Dock 2, but DEP expressly states that this cannot be used for LNG, which DRP plans on exporting from this facility as well. And so this just implies that Delaware River Partners will be seeking an additional permit or modification of existing permits for its LNG proposals. And by continuing to segment this project is avoiding a comprehensive review. And unfortunately, this allowing these permits to go forward in this way, it shows a lack of foresight from the top in NJDEP in the permitting process, and just obfuscation of the larger project plans, which again just impedes public participation. And as others have also said, just in addition to the procedural issues, the air pollution this facility would generate would be tremendous. and would impact communities throughout the greater Philadelphia area. And this project includes a new flaring system that will consistently be burning a variety of fossil fuels, emitting waste products throughout the region, and distributing 7.64 million cubic feet annually. So the flare to the flare, so as to be released into the airshed of vulnerable communities downwind throughout southern New Jersey, which is a 50% increase to its current air permit, without even considering the planned LNG expansions. And the proposed modifications would also almost double the current permitted volume of our VOCs, volatile organic compound emissions. And the short-term effects of exposure to VOCs results in eye and respiratory tract irritation, headaches, dizziness, nausea, and more, but long-term exposure, with which local residents would be exposed to, is very serious health consequences. It's not at all something to be taken lightly, and certainly not something to be rushed through in a time when the public is not able to fully access and fully participate in the process. We need a cumulative impact review and one that involves the community. And just lastly, to emphasize, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's just of the utmost importance that NJDEP not expand emissions of VOC and fossil fuel combustion. Studies have shown the respiratory effects of the virus are exacerbated by air pollution, and it's just particularly galling when the Philadelphia area is the #4 worst airshed in the nation for asthmatics, looking at high asthma prevalence and ER visits due to asthma and asthma-related fatalities. This expansion of this project would be a slap in the face to these communities and their ongoing struggle against respiratory diseases, especially when it's approved through a truncated public engagement process during a respiratory viral pandemic. And there's just a deadly irony here. So we echo the request that others have made that all approvals process for this project be halted until the end of the coronavirus state of emergency, and that the public comment period deadline be extended by another 30 days at a minimum. Thank you for hearing this comment. We'll be submitting written comments as well.
Thank you, Jocelyn. We do have one speaker who is planning on speaking at 6 o'clock. He can't make it until then. That's Doug O'Malley. So in the meantime, Dave Pringle, if you'd want to speak, you are up.
Dave, remember to hit *6.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, I unmuted my phone, but I didn't unmute the *6. This is David Pringle. I'm testifying on behalf of Clean Water Action. I'll try to limit repetition, but do want to incorporate by reference all of the comments made by Jeff Tittle from Sierra Club, Tracy Carluccio from Delaware River Network, Jocelyn from Food and Water Watch and Action, and Doug O'Malley when he testifies at 6 o'clock. We support all their concerns. The permit should be, first it should be suspended until we're through COVID. Public comment needs to be extended, but when you do get to it, this permit needs to be denied. We need new sources and modifications of existing sources of air pollution, like we need more holes in our head. We have laws on the books, the Air Pollution Control Act, the Global Warming Response Act, executive orders, EO 100, Energy Master Plan. This project is inconsistent with all of the above. We need, when you're in a hole, you have to get out of it. The first thing you have to do is to stop digging. And we can't be increasing emissions from a climate perspective if we're going to get to where we need to go. We need to be reducing emissions by, under state law, 80% by 2050. If you follow the science, we need to be reducing emissions 45% by 2030. And this project will have a massive increase in greenhouse gases. So how are we going to be meeting our obligations, moral and legal, if we are increasing emissions when we need to be drastically decreasing them? So with that, we urge you to, actually I want to go back to this thing. It is truly outrageous that you are holding this hearing, that you would deem to hold this hearing on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day the 50th anniversary of your existence is an insult to the mission of the department, to what Earth Day is all about, especially in light of the Harvard study that came out 2 weeks ago that documents that folks that live in areas with historic dirty air pollution, they are more likely to die. Patients that are in COVID are more likely to die in their circumstances than those that had the benefit of cleaner air. And the fact that you're poorly noticed, even if you met the letter of the law, you knew that this project had a significant level of public interest, that you at best follow the absolute minimum of the law, but absolutely not the spirit of the law, and ensuring meaningful public participation, that you're continuing this process, with very little notice, and making it extremely difficult to get the information folks need to make informed decision, especially given the limits of Oprah under the current pandemic, and that you're only giving a week after this hearing to the close of public comment is you're giving public service, you're making a disservice of public service, not the utility. At a time when we desperately need folks' faith in government, you are making that increasingly difficult. So please suspend these processes until you can have meaningful public comment. If you can extend permits for polluters, and you can extend deadlines for polluters, and if you can approve when polluters extend or ask for extensions, as you did with the Nessie pipeline, you can certainly do it for the public. You're the Department of Environmental Protection. You're not the department for the polluters. It's the public first. You should be doing more for the public than the polluters. At the very least, afford us the same courtesies that you do the folks seeking permits from you. And let's remember what those permits are for. It's a permit to pollute. So protect the public, do right, deny this project, suspend it, hold more meaningful public participation in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Well, we're going to be staying on the line until 7 o'clock, right until the end. Is anybody else interested in speaking? As I said, Doug O'Malley said he'd be calling in around 6 o'clock, so we're certainly going to wait for him. And meanwhile, we'll just wait here until anything else happens.
Just a reminder for those that are on the phone that would like to testify that hasn't already done so, please unmute yourself with *6.
This is Ken Ratzman again. What we're going to do is to take a little break and stop the recording, and we'll restart it when Mr. O'Malley arrives, and or if somebody else wants to speak. So for now, we're going to take a break. It is, as I speak, 5:51, and we will stop the recording now. We will restart it upon recommencement of the hearing. Okay, were you all set, Danny?
Yep, recording started.
Doug, I can reread the opening statement if you'd like.
If you could briefly, assuming it's not too long. So,
well, if you want me to just focus on what the modification request is,
sure, please, yeah.
I can do the whole thing if you'd like, but
Just the modification, which I'm familiar with, but
okay.
good to summarize.
Okay, the purpose of this hearing is to seek public comments on the following draft permit, which the department is proposing to approve. Expansion of the existing LPG, butane and propane only, transloading operation at the existing multi-purpose dock for the addition of 2 rail car loading racks, 1 marine vessel loading, and a second enclosed flare. The expansion will increase the facility's annual VOC emissions to 8.61 tons from 5.44 tons in the current permit. The permit does not allow transloading of natural gas or liquid natural gas. The department is proposing to approve this permit. The basis for approval is the facility's compliance with all applicable state air pollution control laws and rules, specifically NJAC 727, 5, 8, 9, 16, 17, and 19. There are no federal applicable air regulation controls on this site. If anyone demonstrates to the department that the facility would not comply with any of the applicable air pollution control laws and rules, the department's proposed decision to approve this permit or the requirements imposed in the draft permit may be changed. And you're familiar with our hearing process and taking turns, and I'm glad you could join us at this time.
Well, I would be remiss without introducing my daughter, Elsa O'Malley. Elsa, do you want to say anything?
Gato.
What's that?
Gato.
Gato. All right. So just for the record, my name is Doug, D-O-U-G, O'Malley,
M-A-L-L-E-Y.
That's right. My daughter knows how to spell her last name. Kudos to her. And then I'm the director of Environment New Jersey.
Yeah, you're the director of Environment New Jersey on YouTube, Facebook. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to have a peanut gallery here. We more than 20,000 citizen members across the state. I mean, there's a lot of things to say here, and obviously I wanted to start off just by thanking all of the members of the public that are on the line and have previously commented. Clearly, a lot of people are in places a lot worse than me, working from home for my kids. But most people obviously aren't thinking about DEP comment decisions right now, and certainly not late in the day. But I just wanted to focus on the fact that this air permit is obviously related to the expansion of VOCs, but is the idea of adding another flare to cover the handling of LPG handling at Dock 2 in Gibbstown. Now, this cannot, as the DEP states, be used for LNG, but this is also clearly evidence that DRP is going to come back for a third iteration, perhaps an actual modification of this permit for LNG. And so one of the things that's just kind of most outrageous on the substance is that we're looking at a kind of a ticky-tack approach by the permittee to avoid a comprehensive review. And this is really where DEP should be coming in and not just looking at segment by segment or dock by dock, but looking at the overall impact of air pollution, especially when we're talking about VOCs and hazardous air pollutants. That is a kind of on the definition of Earth Day when we're trying to reduce the amount of air pollution. We need to be looking at comprehensively on the impact, especially in a community that is not, is close to a residential community in Gibbstown. Gibbstown certainly would qualify as an area that has increased air pollution across the board because of industrial activity, especially from the multiple proposals that are in front of various agencies to expand this into a liquefied natural gas export facility. The other just kind of key thing here is that we know that Gloucester County, like most of South Jersey, has ozone issues, especially in the summer months. The American Lung Association just came out with their latest State of the Air report, and it shows that failing grades for Camden County does not have enough data for Gloucester, but it is or Salem, but it is kind of indication, obviously, that air pollution travels. And what we're seeing in the COVID crisis is a future with cleaner air. What we're not seeing in this permit is a focus on reducing air pollution by looking at the problem from a comprehensive perspective. Now, I wanted to kind of pivot just the process, and other people have talked about this time and again, but I just wanted to thank the work of Tracy Carluccio and the Delaware River Network on highlighting this original permit, because this is the absolute example of how not to do a public process. We're in the midst of a COVID-19 shutdown, and we had an original notice of this permit on March 24th. The presumption is that it showed up in a newspaper, but it was not in the register. And so, essentially you had an entire permit process that began during the COVID lockdown, and you're going to have an entire permit process that ends in the COVID lockdown. The virtual hearing, obviously works for some people, but there are a lot of people in Gibbstown and across South Jersey and across the state that don't necessarily have access to the internet and at webcam, and that's something that when we talk about equity for all participants, this is not equitable. It's good for me. It works for me. I don't know if it works exactly for my daughter, but it doesn't.
Come on, ditch the duds and crank up the fun.
Exactly, crank up the fun, right? That's what we're all about. I just wanted to note here that one of the just traditional tools of any advocate is to use Oprah, and right now we have a comment deadline where Oprah requests aren't going to be met. So how can you kind of move forward with a process when information is not fully available to the public, when you can't meet Oprah deadlines, when there aren't there's not an ability to have people come into buildings? I mean, this is creating a predatory process, and is exactly why we need to expand the EO 127 to not put a pause on processes like this. So I don't want to go on and on here, but I guess just the last point to make is that there's been no acknowledgement by the department, and this is the danger of when you do permitting by telescoping. There's no acknowledgement by the department on the overall kind of intent of the project. There's no acknowledgement of the air emissions and the carbon emissions of this facility off-site, right? So we are not looking at the life cycle impacts of carbon of this liquefied natural gas. We're not looking at the impacts of when this ultimately is combusted in a foreign market. And this goes back to some of the comments that were brought up during the EO 100 stakeholder meetings, which feel like a generation ago, but were only 6 weeks ago. Carbon life cycle needs to be part of this process. This is just looking at the air permit part, but there's no acknowledgement that our world is changing in COVID, and it might not really be a great idea to have a massive industrial fossil fuel plant on the banks of the Delaware River in a floodplain that's going to exacerbate our climate crisis, in a moment of a global health pandemic. So, it's not just an issue of this is a rotten process. It's not just an issue of a lack of comprehensive review of the air contaminants. It's also just a failure to look at the overall intent of this permit. So let me just conclude by giving my daughter the last word, which is always slightly dangerous. But Elsa, do you have any last thoughts here?
I always think oil is like from cars, but literally it's all around you. It's in your street puddles. It's in a factory. It's in your cars. So I want to crank up the fun. So that means let's get this party started.
So we'll focus on the last part there.
And my cat wants to say a word.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wait, is it? Oh.
If only we could always bring our children to public hearings. but I do just want to kind of conclude there, because there's it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, right? Like, this is not the appropriate way to commemorate Earth Day with a public comment hearing, essentially in the latter part of the day when a lot of people are with their families, whether they want to be or not.
Why are you putting trash in my river?
And we'll end with that. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doug. We're going to keep the hearing open until 7 o'clock or close to 7 o'clock. It's possible someone comes in late or dials in late. I'll give any other opportunity for anyone to speak. Reminder, if you do want to speak, you could *6 if you called in, or if you are in with the Microsoft Teams, just click the microphone on the toolbar and you could speak. Okay, as I hear no one ready to speak, we could take another recess. I'll reconvene maybe 10 of or 6:50 and give one last chance for anybody to say anything. So for now, we'll take a break until 6:50. 6:50. Thank you. All right, we're back on the record. It is right now 6:50. I'm just gonna put out one last call. Does anybody want to share any of their thoughts, testify, give a few words? If you do, simply unmute yourself by *6, hitting *6 if you're on the phone line, or going to the toolbar if you're dialed in through Teams and unmuting yourself. If I don't hear anybody in the next 30 seconds or a minute, I'm going to close out the hearing. I do want to say a couple words while I'm waiting. Thank you all for participating. I know this is it's tough to slice time out of your day, and we do appreciate it. Two, if you'd want a copy of the response to comment document, the hearing information, and any further information related to the facility, please make sure Danny has your correct mailing address, especially if you are not at your place of business right now. So please make sure you get that to Danny. So is there anybody else that would like to testify? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. It is now 6:51. I'm going to close out this hearing officially. Thank you all.